Thank you so much. Now I have to follow that act for the rest of the service. Well, it is wonderful to have the Weddle sisters back with us to help lead us in our music today. Deb Jackman, by the way, our music director, is under the weather and was not able to make it at the last minute. So not only are they our special guest musicians, but they have agreed to lead us in our singing today. So you will be welcome to sing with them. You might not want to. You might want to just enjoy. But anyway, we thank you so much for helping lead our service today as well. And Maura, of course, we always appreciate you being here and being the anchor. So welcome to everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. We begin this morning, as usual, by embracing all that you bring with you, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences. All that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And that includes those of you who have actually, I should say, braved the smoke to be here this morning. I'm just 2 miles away, and my eyes were running and my nose stuffing up just getting over here. So we appreciate you being here, and also understand those who are streaming with us. While you might, more of you might be at home anyway today, streaming live. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. Not only locally, but if you are staying out of the smoke because you're in Spokane, we understand. But there's lots of folks from around the country, even places around the world, who stream with us, so thank you for being here. And also to those who are Zooming with us, we're starting a sort of pilot Zoom room, so folks who want to stream or want to enjoy the service together in a Zoom room and then interact a little bit with us can also be here. By the way, are we here? Yes. Why don't you guys take just a minute to introduce yourselves? Do you mind, since we can hear you?
Sure. My name is Terry Anderson, and I'm hosting this final beta test before we try to invite many more people, and I don't know how many will show for next week. So if you know somebody who would appreciate the chance to meet some other Unitarians from across the country, do invite them.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting. And who else do we have?
Let's see. I'm Mike Long. If you can hear me, I know you can't see me yet, but I'm watching the service from Charlotte, North Carolina. And when Terry introduced this idea, I just jumped on it. I was excited. I've been attending your services via Zoom for about 3 months and joined your congregation. But it's great to have this new method, this new tool for creating a virtual congregation.
Thank you, Mike. It's always great hearing your voice.
And there's my friends JP and Alexis from Edmonton as well.
Great, wonderful, great to have you guys. I should look at the camera because you can see me looking at you from here. So anyway, great to have all of you. Thanks for being with us during our service today, and we hope others will join via Zoom as well in the coming weeks and months. I did want to start our service by acknowledging really a terrible loss to our community this week. I'm sure most of you know, if not all of you, that Sandy Williams, a local activist, particularly in the area of racial justice and LGBTQ rights, was killed in a plane crash earlier this week, along with other members of her friends and family, her circle, but also other members of our community. So it's been a difficult week here in Spokane, and especially for those closest to Sandy and the others who perished in that accident. I have learned that there is going to be a Karl Maxey Center-sponsored
celebration of life in Sandy's honor on Tuesday, September 13th. That's coming right up, from 5 to 8 p.m., and it is going to be at First Interstate Center of the Arts, which is on West Spokane Falls Boulevard. So that's the First Interstate Center of the Arts, Tuesday, 5 to 8. And from what I understand, not sure about this, but this may be the only public opportunity for our community to celebrate Sandy's life and what she's meant to us. I do think there's going to be a more private memorial service later down the road, but we might not have an opportunity to join that. So Tuesday might be the best opportunity for doing so. Okay, so a sad and difficult week for us here in Spokane. But it's always good to be in good company, be with the people we love, be with our friends, the people we work with and worship with, and all of those things that are required of us as people who are living life to the fullest. So let's take a few moments now to greet one another. Please say hi to those you do know and look forward to seeing. There's might be some faces you're not familiar with. If you're one of those unfamiliar faces, please don't be shy. We're very glad that you're here this morning. So please take a few moments to greet one another.
Thank you.
there'll be more opportunity to visit one another during our social period following the service, so please stay around for that. Let's move forward now. We'll move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Good morning. Good. The opening reflection is entitled The Bright Thread of Hope by Gretchen Haley. There is too much beauty in this world to give up on it yet. And it is always too soon to surrender to cynicism. Bring your doubts, your skepticism, your downright confusion, even your bitterness. But in the midst of all these, in the center, wrap your tender fingers around that still bright thread of hope. Feel in your heart that still, steady hunger for something more. The vision we glimpse every day in the rising sun across the foothills. The light that spreads across the face of the one we love. The look of knowing all there is to know and still loving life. Loving us just as it is, just as we are. For this hour, we come to celebrate, to praise, to give thanks, to refuse to give up, to steady ourselves, keepers of hope, brave builders of this still possible world. Come, let us worship together.
Our next hymnal that we're going to be singing is hymn number 123, The Spirit of Life. We invite you all to stand as you are able and sing with us. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, moves in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me.
Yeah, you, as serene as that song is, we can applaud. Yes, so thank you. Yes, beautiful. We are now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds. And we want to begin, as we have been for some time now, for the people of Ukraine, as well as the rest of that region that are being most impacted by the violence and war that's going on there. We also want to kindle a candle this morning on behalf of all the lives that were lost in that tragic plane crash earlier this week. Nancy Avery has asked us to kindle a candle celebrating the life of and to mourn the death of Patricia Hicks, who was also on board that plane along with Sandy and others. And Nancy says that Pat was a member of the LGBTQ Seniors of the Inland Northwest for the past year, a group that meets in our space, and she will be missed a lot. Nancy also let me know that just yesterday, another prominent member of the LGBTQ community, the local community, passed away, Danny Hawkins. He's a past board member of Outspoken, so we want to kindle a candle in his honor. And obviously it's been a very difficult week for our local LGBTQ community with the loss of so many of their prominent and loved leaders. So let's include a candle for everyone who has experienced the shock and the grief of what happened this week. And let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. I guess I should say we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
New York Island, from the redwood forest so much. So this week, as we remember people whose lives we've lost recently and 21 years ago on 9/11, I also want to recognize that this September 11th is Grandparents' Day. So put your hands on your heart if you've ever felt loved by a grandparent. Yeah. I shared about its history last year, but I wanted to share it again since you grown-ups may have forgotten. Established in 1979 by a West Virginian named Marion McQuaid, it is a day to recognize and celebrate that special role that grandparents and grandfriends play in children's lives. President Jimmy Carter's official proclamation reads, "Grandparents are our continuing tie to the near past, to the events and beliefs and experiences that so strongly affect our lives and the world around us. Whether they are our own surrogate grandparents whether they are our own or surrogate grandparents who fill some of the gaps in our mobile society, our senior generation also provides our society a link to our national heritage and traditions. We all know grandparents whose values transcend passing fads and pressures and who possess the wisdom of distilled pain and joy. Because they are usually free to love and guide and befriend the young without having to take the daily responsibility for them, they can often reach out past pride and fear of failure and close the space between generations. So to the grandparents in this room and outside of it, thank you for your wisdom and your grace and your friendship. And now, instead of a story, I have a bit of an announcement. As Todd has said before, the demographic makeup of our church is not unique. We follow the trend of having more older people than children. Just look around. In fact, did you know that there are more grandparents today than ever before? The Legacy Project estimates that by the year 2030, when my own son turns 18, 1 in every 5 Americans will be over the age of 65. For the first time in history, people age 65 and older will outnumber children under age 5. And what an amazing opportunity this provides for creating rich intergenerational relationships. As you know, supporting the spiritual growth of our children, youth, and their families is vital to our Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane's shared ministry. We can do this through fun, multi-generational activities, as well as through programs that are designed especially for children and youth. Currently, we offer a children's chapel each Sunday morning during the second service, and we would love your help. There's no preparation required. You just escort the children with me after the time for all ages, help them with our activity of the day, engage in our reflective conversations, and help clean up. There are other ways you can help too. The children really enjoy homemade goodies and fresh fruit on Sunday mornings, and someone, that's me, forgot to pick up juice boxes when she went to Costco for our fall snack haul. So a monetary donation, even if you're streaming from afar, would help us fill our juice box gap. Our RE mission is to give children and youth the tools that they need to move through this world with compassion, integrity, and the ability to think critically. So if you would like to help us enact this mission, please let me know. You can find me after either service or email me at the address on the back of your bulletin. Thank you, and happy Grandparents' Day.
For this morning's meditation, feel free to get yourself comfortable. Close your eyes if you wish. The morning reading was written by Parker J. Palmer, entitled "Everything Falls Away." He quotes at the beginning William Stafford, who says, "There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. Sooner or later, everything falls away. You, the work you've done, your successes, large and small, your failures too. Those moments when you were light, along with the times when you became one with the night. The friends, the people you loved who loved you. Those who might have wished you ill, none of this is forever. All of it is soon to go, or going, or long gone. Everything falls away, except the thread you followed, unknowing all along. The thread that strings together all you've been and done. The thread you didn't know you were tracking until, toward the end, you see that the thread is what stays and everything else falls away. Follow that thread as far as you can, and you'll find it does not end, but weaves into the unimaginable vastness of life. Your life never was the solo turn it seemed to be. It was always part of the great weave of nature and humanity, an immensity we come to know only as we follow our own thread to the place where it merges with the boundless whole. Each of our threads runs its course, then joins in life together, this magnificent tapestry in which we live forever.
That was such a beautiful reading. I'm not going to give a reading today. Instead, I'm going to take the opportunity to comment on the Woody Guthrie song that we just heard. Woody Guthrie wrote a lot of his songs in relation to the historic events happening in this country around the Dust Bowl, in which there were mass migrations from the East and Midwest to the West. And I imagine when he was writing that song, this land is my land, that yellow ribbon of highway belongs to me, he was pushing back against a time in this country where that wasn't true. You didn't just have a right to travel across the country from state to state as an American, but there were state laws that prevented some people from passing through. In fact, the word hobo, which was a derogatory name for a lot of these travelers, is short for Hoboken, New Jersey. Right, so it was in many ways dangerous to try to travel across the country. People were afraid. They demonized those who were just trying to find a better life, just trying to go to a place where they could find a job, make an income. And I think about what's going on in my own neighborhood right now, in our own community, which is not unlike communities around the country, I'm sure, where people are being redlined and criminalized because they're trying to find a better place to live. And we have neighbors of mine engaging in a lawsuit to try to prevent them from being able to find transitional housing in a hotel a mile away. We've been down that path many times before in this country, where we redline and demonize and criminalize people based on some arbitrary circumstance beyond their control, in this case, poverty. So I was very touched by the song you chose to sing today, because I've been thinking about what it means that this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, not from Camp Hope to Fred Meyer's. Not from one end of the uncovered dirt field to another. So I'm with Brian Beggs. Let's make Spokane a place where we all belong.
When I think back on these times and the dreams we left behind, I'll be glad 'cause I was blessed to get to have you in my life. When I look back on these days, I'll look and see your face. You were right there for me. Be
Thank you so much. I wish you could be here every week. So it was 11 years ago when, quite by accident, I began calling myself an atheist. Although I sometimes add that just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I don't believe in God. That's a paradoxical statement, I know, that I'll explain in a bit, but first a little bit about why I began referring to myself as such. During my very first week as your minister in Spokane, I was contacted by a TV reporter wanting to interview me about a controversy in our community involving a bus advertisement that had initially been refused by the Spokane Transit Authority, but after its sponsors took the matter to court, STA decided to allow it. Some of you remember this? The simple ad, comprised of white letters on a blue background, stated, "Are you good without God? Millions are." And although it was sponsored by the Spokane Coalition of Reason, a local group of humanists and atheists, it was part of a nationwide campaign by the United Coalition of Reason that was raising awareness by stirring up similar controversy with billboards and bus ads around the country. No matter where these campaigns occurred, they got lots of free publicity by creating just that kind of controversy, either because they displayed them or because they were banned from being displayed. They couldn't lose. Imagine going out to rural America and putting up a big billboard that says, "We're good without God." Going to be in the news, right? And according to the organization's website at the time, it's changed a little bit, its purpose was working to raise the visibility of local non-theistic groups all over America. Nationally, we do this by conducting campaigns which highlight the fact that non-theists live in every community across the country. Locally, we do this by promoting informal cooperation among local groups, hosting local coalition websites, training group leaders, and funding publicity campaigns. So, I knew nothing about the controversy here since I'd only just arrived a few days earlier, but was happy to tell the local media that I was pleased that freedom of speech had proven victorious and the sponsors of the ad were not going to be discriminated against because some disagree with their beliefs or their message. On the 6 o'clock news that evening, the reporter stated, "Todd Eckloff is the atheist minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church." And supports the ads and quotes me, "Well, I'm glad they changed their minds and are going to let them run these spots," he said. "We want people to be able to express themselves on par with everyone else regardless of their beliefs." Not bad, right? But I was astonished to find myself identified as an atheist, since I'd never defined myself as such, and the reporter never asked me anything about my theological beliefs. From this, I inferred they must have Googled atheist in Spokane, and my name came up since I had at the time occasionally referred to myself as an atheistic mystic. I'm guessing they figured that was close enough. And I'll explain what I mean by that phrase momentarily too. But at the time I thought, I've been here at a week, not even a week at UUCS, and it's now going to be known as the Atheist Church because of me. I wonder if I'll last 2 weeks. So atheistic mystic is a term that I borrowed from my favorite social psychologist, Erich Fromm, who used it to describe himself. In his book, The Art of Loving, Fromm outlines humanity's theological development in 3 stages. In the beginning of this development, he says, we find a despotic, jealous God who considers man, whom he created, as his property and is entitled to do with him whatever he pleases. This is a primitive stage that is often accompanied by humans attempting to appease the angry gods through rituals and sacrifice. Fromm calls the second stage of our theological development the covenantal stage, at which point humans make a contract with their gods or God, agreeing to obey a set of religious laws and engage in certain religious rituals in exchange for their God's favor. If they do what they believe their God or gods want, they can avoid disasters and displeasure and even be rewarded with health and prosperity. In the Hebrew religion, as Fromm points out, God actually makes a covenant with Noah in which he promises never to destroy the human race again, a covenant by which he himself is bound. Right? God enters the contract. Now there's a law imposed upon Yahweh. So at the covenantal stage, people believe that they have some control over God's behavior. It's not just an angry, oh my God, they're up there pounding the sky again. Let's sacrifice somebody. So when misfortune does befall them, anyway, like disasters, diseases, war, and so on, then they have to find a scapegoat to explain it. Somebody else has broken covenant and displeased the angry gods, perhaps the heathens, the apostates, the strangers among us. If they cleanse themselves and their societies of these evils, then God's favor will be restored, or so they believe. But at the third stage of theological maturation, Fromm says, God ceases to be a person, a man, a father, but becomes the symbol of the principle behind the manifoldness of phenomena. At this stage, he says, God is transformed from the figure of a father into the symbol of his principles, those of justice, truth, and love. God is truth. God is love. At this stage, then, God is not a divine being, but the values we devote ourselves to. God is not a person, but a principle that transcends conventions and covenants. At this stage, Fromm says, God cannot have a name, not even God. A name always denotes a thing or a person, something finite. How can God have a name if God is not a person nor a thing? Therefore, the truly religious person, he says, does not love God as a child loves its father or mother, but sees God as a symbol of humanity's striving for love, truth, and justice, and the full unfolding of human potential. When this happens, Fromm says, one does not speak about God nor even mention his name. To love God, if one were to use the word, would mean then to long for the attainment of the full capacity to love, because that is humanity's ultimate potential, the full capacity to love for the realization of that which God stands for in oneself. God, in this sense, represents humanity's and the individual's own highest aspirations and potential. So, to speak of God reduces what we mean to a thing, to an idol, rather than to those quiet principles and values that we strive to live by. It is to kill something that is nebulous, evolving, and mysterious. Thus, the atheistic mystic, having arrived at this final stage of theological maturation, does not speak or even think about God as a person with a will and a mind, but of one's devotion to those highest principles found in the hopes and religions of almost all people. All of this is why, like Fromm, I refer to myself as an atheistic mystic, because I don't believe in a person named God. I don't believe there is an all-powerful, all-knowing, magical entity hovering about in the ether, obsessing about everything I think and do. But I do believe in many of the principles that human beings have aspired towards throughout our existence, like compassion and justice and equality, along with freedom, reason, and tolerance that our own liberal religion is founded upon. Are founded upon, I should say, is founded upon. Yeah, that's right. Are founded upon. Is that right, Professor? You're the poet, you should know. Okay, anyway. So this is obviously also, despite my poor grammar, why I became a Unitarian Universalist. Because it is a religion focused on universal principles, not dogmas or creeds, aka covenants or conventions, or upon a prescribed and required belief in God. As a liberal religion, our values are rooted in the Enlightenment principles, in particular of freedom, reason, and tolerance, that have been most recently fleshed out, if you will, in the Unitarian Universalist Association's adoption of those 7 principles in 1985. Right, our religion's a lot older than that, hundreds of years older than that, but these 7 principles, if you look into them, you're going to find freedom, reason, and tolerance are at the heart of those. But they fleshed them out in some beautiful ways. Sadly, for the past several years, the UUA has been regressing to a more theologically primitive stage. Most recently, it has redefined our liberal religion as a covenantal religion. Last year, UUA President Susan Frederick Gray wrote that covenant lies at the heart of our faith, a shared agreement of how we should be together. Our religion is made from an ongoing, interlocking, and organically growing series of promises we make with our communities, congregations, in the world. I don't know if you've been involved in any of those promises. I've not. I don't know what she's talking about. In 2015, the UUA also established a recovenanting task force with the goal of changing it from a member service organization into a covenantal one, whatever that means. Most recently, the UUA has decided to rewrite its bylaws with a special emphasis on Article 2, the article containing those 7 principles. The UUA leaders are now, preliminarily at least, talking about replacing the principles with a list of just 7 words that they are referring to as values: love, interdependence, equity, generosity, justice, evolution, pluralism, diversity, leaving out words like freedom, reason, and tolerance, and democracy, and individualism for that matter. This move should not be surprising given the UUA's intent on turning ours into just another primitive authoritarian religion. As such, it has already violated several of our most cherished principles. Number 1, the worth and dignity of every person. Number 2, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And number 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. They cannot do what they are going to do and let those 7 principles stand. Better to have some euphemisms, some one-word euphemisms without explanation. Mid-level theology rooted in convention and covenant and control cannot abide these principles because they are rooted in individual freedom. Alas, if this were not bad enough a downgrade, the UUA is now increasingly edging us toward collectively adopting even more primitive theological beliefs by shunning and shaming those of us who are non-believers. In Reverend Frederick Muir's 2015 lecture, the two UU ministers, entitled From iChurch to Beloved Community, Ecclesiology and Justice, which has become the blueprint for the institutional changes the UUA leadership is now undertaking, Muir says that one of the things most detrimental to Unitarian Universalism's survival is what he calls its North Atlantic look, as reflected in our demographics, theology, and epistemology. It will grow more cut off from the U.S. population unless we start reflecting our society's true diversity. And I'm actually fine with, racial diversity, obviously, but theological and epistemological diversity? What does that mean? So he goes on to suggest that our liberal religion needs to become more authoritarian and ecclesiastical by becoming more spiritual and adopting what he calls a doctrine of church. 2 years later, in June 2017, the same year the UUA declared that ours is a white supremacist religion, its UU World magazine published an article entitled Moving Beyond Whites Only Theology. Its author writes, to put it rather bluntly, atheism is a white thing. Going on to explain, I contend that people of color have, by and large, clung to their beliefs in God in whatever form, not because they are insufficiently educated, but because it is God who has given them the strength to endure, resist, and in some small ways overcome systems of racism and white supremacy in the myriad ways it has persisted for centuries. It takes a certain amount of freedom and privilege to announce the existence of God. I believe that any movement in Unitarian Universalism to make God unwelcome in our sanctuaries is effectively akin to posting whites-only signs on our doors. Yes, it makes no sense. Firstly, I don't know of any movement in our sanctuaries to make those who believe in God unwelcome. We are a religion rather comprised of believers and non-believers, and long have been. Nonetheless, the idea that ours is supposed to be a catch-all religion that must lack any norms or traditions of its own in order to be of interest to everyone is not what Unitarianism has ever been about, and it is a perversion of what universalism means. The notion that we must radically alter our own liberal values and traditions in order to attract people from other religions is simply bizarre. Why would we want to do that? Was Transylvania's 16th century Unitarian bishop Ferenc David wrong when he was imprisoned and slowly put to death for claiming that praying to Jesus made no more sense to him than praying to Mary? Should we now pray to Jesus in our services in order to attract more Baptists and Pentecostals to our community? Should we pray to Mary and embrace the Holy Trinity in order to include more Catholics? Is not praying to Jesus also a white thing? Is it white privilege to deny the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost? And if it is true that people believe in God as a source of strength in difficult times, which seems true to me, at least for some, for many people, how does the author explain that the vast majority of white people believe in God compared to a small fraction who don't? Either by this same illogic, we must conclude that believing in God is a white thing resulting from white privilege, or that most white people experience suffering, adversity, and injustice in the world, and thus, in his words, cling to their beliefs in God. This author, who commits too many logical fallacies to go into here, including in his criticism and commitment of his criticism of our commitment to reason itself, clearly understands nothing about logic and is incapable of using it. Nevertheless, he has been involved with the UUA's Commission on, guess what? Institutional change. No surprise there, given what we see happening in our beleaguered religion these days. Yet contrary to what this author and the reporter who interviewed me several years ago believe, ours is not an atheist religion, any more than it is a white supremacist religion. There are atheists among us, as well as believers. Most of the believers probably have unorthodox beliefs about God, but they still believe, as I often hear it put, in something. I love the mystery of that. The outright atheists like me, who say, I don't believe in God, remain a minority. And I don't feel like I'm a persecuted minority, by the way. I'm not saying that. But ours, rather, is a liberal religion where believers and non-believers assemble together based upon our common commitment to those cherished values that I like to summarize in Enlightenment terms as freedom, reason, and tolerance. When I returned to the pulpit following the news report all those years ago, nobody said anything about it, nor seemed to care. And that put me at ease, and I began considering the distinction between defining myself as atheistic rather than just atheist. To be an atheistic mystic is an unfamiliar term to most and takes a lot of explaining to understand. Nor does it necessarily mean that one doesn't believe in God, only that one doesn't believe in talking about God because it is too grand and nebulous a subject to reasonably discuss or to responsibly discuss. As in all mystical traditions, as soon as we try to grasp it, it becomes ungraspable. To even speak God's name becomes a mistake, leading to idolatry and theological error. But as I thought about what I really meant and believed, I realized the term atheistic mystic was not only confusing, but disingenuous on my part. For when asked if I believe in God, I knew that most people were asking if I believed in a person named God with a mind and will of its own, hovering about in the ether somewhere, obsessing about what I and others think and do. Or that it is magically orchestrating my life so that I have good things happen to me or punishes me for my errors, or is at the very least putting difficulties in front of me to help me learn about the important lessons necessary for my soul to transcend to the next level. For me, the answer is clear. No, I don't believe in such a person, nor that God is any kind of person at all. So, rather than jumping through intellectual hoops to explain this, I realized how much more efficient and truthful and easy it is just to say I'm an atheist. And I've been grateful to the presumptive reporter ever since for unknowingly pushing me in that direction. Yet when I do engage in deeper theological conversation, my answer is more nuanced. Like Jesus, who defined God as love, or Gandhi, who said God is truth, or Islam that says God is mercy, or the Hebrew prophets that say God is justice, I have no trouble theologizing my principles. Right? I believe in love, and I believe in truth, and I believe in mercy, and I believe in justice, as well as our religion's liberal values, freedom and reason and tolerance. And if we were to all agree that these are what God is, then I must admit to believing in God. If that is, we agree that God is freedom, for example, meaning that God and freedom are synonymous, if there's an equal sign, that's what is an equal sign, that they're the same thing, then I cannot logically say I believe in one and not the other. Right? In other words, when functioning at Erich Fromm's highest stage of theological development, at which God is not a person but a principle, or as he put it, the symbol of the principles God is supposed to represent, then obviously I do believe in God. The problem remains, however, this word, God. God is so potent that it is difficult to hear it without experiencing its historic, archetypal, emotional, and psychological implications. In our society in particular, to say God is love, for example, sounds like one is saying that love is the same thing as the Abrahamic God worshipped by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So if I say I agree that God is love, it doesn't indicate that I think God is a principle, but that a person named God is loving. Well, that's the difference. So here again, it becomes easier and more honest for me to simply acknowledge that I am an atheist who is devoted to principles, the principles of freedom, reason, and tolerance, along with some of these others. This then is what I mean by just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I don't believe in God. I don't mean, as another saying goes, that there is no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. I mean that when the question about God's existence is put to me in simple dualistic terms in which there is only one binary choice, I must answer no. I do not believe in God because the idea that such a person exists is unreasonable to me, to be polite. But if the question is layered, and I were to answer it from Fromm's three-dimensional overview, I would answer, no, I don't believe in a primitive, sadistic, despotic God. No, I don't believe in a person, not even in a benevolent father figure named God. But yes, I do have principles and values that I am devoted to, and if we were to theologize about these by equating them with God, then yes, I am a believer. Of course, if these principles are the same as God, then there's no point saying so. I can just talk about my principles, which may be shared by others no matter how our theological beliefs might otherwise differ. Which brings me back to being an atheistic mystic, the stage at which Fromm says one does not speak about God nor even mention its name. Thank you.
The next song we'll be singing is actually not a hymn. It's a piece written and made popular by John Lennon in 1971 called Imagine. We invite you all to sing along with us, so please stand up if you are willing and able. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Oh, imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
For our benediction, I share with you Miriam Therese Winter's blessing song. May the blessing of God go before you. May her grace and peace abound. May her spirit live within you. May love wrap you round. May her blessing remain with you always. May you walk on holy ground. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.